Hi and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So today I thought I would do something a little bit different, and I thought I would actually discuss about wet nibs and fire hose nibs. So I have a number of pens here with me today, and I'll show you some of the varying levels of wetness that you can get out of a pen. Now, the thing is, there's a number of things that can actually factor in the wetness of the pen. And so the first thing really is the nib and the feed. Now, the main ink channel in the feed could be a wide channel, which will allow more ink to flow. It could be that the tines have more of a gap between them when the tines were cut into two, and or even flossed with a brass shim, and that will also actually increase the wet flow or the ink flow on a nib. Now, there are other things that can also factor in as well. There's the ink, for instance. So some inks are more dry, some are more lubricated and more wet. There's also the paper as well. So, for instance, if you use something like Clairefontaine or Rhodia or even Tomoe River paper, then you're going to find that the ink is going to pool on the surface and actually make the ink look more wet. And if you then try to use that same ink on more cheaper, more absorbent paper, then the ink is going to absorb really quickly. It's not going to smudge as much, but you potentially can then get the ink spreading and feathering, and bleeding through to the other side of the page. So it really depends on a number of factors there, and this can change per pen, per ink, obviously. I really wanted to show you just a number of pens here and really just do some writing samples so you could see what they look like. So if I just move this out of the way and move this in, I'm going to show you, zoom in a bit, actually let's get a pen. I'm going to show you just a standard Waterman Hemisphere. So in terms of I'll write the pen names on each of these so we actually have a reference. So Waterman Hemisphere. Now, in terms of wetness, let's have a look at the wetness here. We'll do 2 squares. So it's a little bit, so the reference point really are between these points here. So it is a little bit wet. It's going to smudge a little bit, but not massively. So let me just try and grab another pen. Now this is going to be a Visconti. This is the Opera Silver Dust. So let's write this down. Opera Silver Dust. Now, likewise, the other thing that can affect it is the width of the nib. Obviously, the wider the nib, the more ink it puts down. So that Waterman Hemisphere was a medium. This is a 1.3mm stub. So let's see how this actually fares, shall we? So that, I would say, is quite a fire hose of a nib. That's rather wet. Now, let's try another pen we have here. This is the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. And again, this is a stub nib, a 1.3mm stub. So we'll do the same test here. And that's Diamine Earl Grey. Now, again, that's quite a fire hose of a nib. Very, very wet. we'll try a Visconti Homo sapiens Florentine Hills. Now this is using Visconti green ink. Now Visconti ink I normally tend to find quite dry, but this is quite a fire hose of a nib. Actually, Florentine Hills. Trying to talk and write at the same time doesn't always go down well. So this is a medium nib. So that's not too bad. But again, it is a medium nib. And what we'll take another one, which is another stub, which is the Visconti Opera Master Crimson Tide. And we'll try this one. You can see this ink is quite wet, so I'll just put Crimson Tide. Now, let's give this a try. So this is Diamond Wild Strawberry here. Now that, you can see, is a very, very wet nib. So again, that was a stub. So this pen here is the Homo sapiens Lava edition. Now this is a fine nib, so let's try this. And it's actually a Bronze Age. We'll call it by the Bronze Age. So this is a fine nib. So, but this is inked up with that's inked up with a Mont Blanc Toffee Brown. And then we have this pen, which is a Dark Age Homo sapiens, and this is a medium nib. So. And this is using Pilot Rocha Zuku Kirisami. So this is a medium nib. This is quite wet. But again, it's not overly wet. I guess it is wet, but not a fire hose of a nib as such. It's bordering on there. And we have the Visconti Speakeasy. So let's try this one. And this is a medium nib. And this is inked up with Mont Blanc Corn Poppy Red. Having to think there for a moment. So many pens inked up. So again, that is quite a fire hose of a nib. And then we'll take a couple of pens here. We have, see if can we fit them on there. Probably not. Let's just do one in that case. We'll do the Visconti Millionaire, and this is the Empire Honey edition, and this is a yellow ink. So this is Visconti Millionaire, and this is a medium nib as well. So there you can see that again, that's a little bit wet, but not overly wet. So if we zoom out a little bit, and then you'll be able to see these up close here more. So we have the Waterman Hemisphere, we have the Opera Silver Dust, the Homo Sapiens London Fog, the Florentine Hills, the Opera Master Crimson Tide, the Bronze Age, the Dark Age, the Speakeasy, and the Millionaire. So you can see really how sort of different wetnesses can be affected on the page. Now, obviously we're using different pens and different nibs here, so this isn't a control test in any way, shape or form. However, it just goes to show how you can get some fire hose of a nib combination with ink, with the nib width as well, and it can make a pen very, very wet. Now, it really just depends on the pen itself. Sometimes I've had the silver dust actually smear a lot more. I think it also really depends on the humidity in the air as well, on whether or not an ink dries quicker or slower. I think when it's more humid, what happens is the ink tends to, I think it's dry slower. I think I normally find inks take longer to dry in the summer than they do in the winter. Anyway, I thought this might be just a useful video, just as a selection of pens here, just so you can see how wet some of these nibs are. Now, obviously, you're not going to be smearing your writing on every day, but sometimes you do. But at the end of the day, you want to know sort of whether or not an ink is going to dry quickly, so you can turn the page if you're actually writing in a notebook. So I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.